Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fridays with Phil. Now, today we will be tapping into the lives of 5 individuals who wanted to share their stories of being born the way that they are. And many of you may know this topic or this theme, Born This Way, from the pop artist Lady Gaga. And a few months ago, back in October, the Tri Delta sorority on Milliken's campus wanted to create a week where individuals felt that they were important. And they wanted to have different activities where individuals can come and express themselves as individuals. And I thought that that was something that's very genius and very, very important to us as individuals because we often go through our lives not really celebrating who we are as individuals. And so I love these 5 people that you are going to be introduced to in just a few seconds because they all come from various backgrounds, but also have similar stories. And I really do hope that you take a lot from them today and really, really, truly enjoy and also learn from what they have experienced, but also how they got through it, which is very important. Milliken University, an institution demonstrating diversity of human experience, where students develop a respect for difference and dignity for all, holds 5 individuals: Autumn Watkins, junior nursing major; Aaron Thomas, freshman political science major; David Michael Jones, sophomore music business major; Amanda Morgan, freshman business major; and Stuart Ball, a freshman soccer player and graphic design major. All individuals seeking acceptance among their fellow peers, who also share similar stories of non-acceptance, bullying, coming out, and celebrating who they are as individuals. We are going to tap into the life of Stuart Ball, an individual who shares his story of struggling with his reading disability, but with confidence given from his teachers, mother and father, and aunt. He realized that he was able to achieve his dream through his determination and hard work.
When I was in 4th grade, I moved from Virginia to Indiana, and I struggled in school and took a couple tests and learned that I had a reading disability and also ADD and ADHD. And I'd always found school just hard, and especially like math and science. And as I went into middle school, it became even harder because everyone was ahead of me, and I just kind of gave up on school and just didn't care about it and wanted to focus on my friends. And but my parents still cared, and so in 8th grade they gave me a private tutor, and I started seeing her for just math. But as I got older and into high school, she was helping me with math and science, and her husband actually was a English and history teacher, so I had the best of both worlds there. I became 10 times more successful through her, and she pretty much taught me through high school to get to where I was as a senior. And towards the end of my senior year, I didn't even need her because she had done her job and got me through. When I was a kid and I was waiting for my Christmas present, my Aunt Julia would always get me some sort of kind of art supply, like paints or a sketch pad or something, and it would frustrate me at first, but I would always fill it up with some kind of drawings and stuff. So she was kind of the inspiration for my love for art. And when I got older, my mom would send me to my room to like read or something, and I'd always get out paints or sketch pads and draw and paint, and instead of learning when I probably should have. But my Aunt Julie would always critique my artwork, and uh, tell me how to be a better artist. She was my little private art teacher. As I got older, I would always find my calling in art class, and I would say that she's my inspiration for becoming an artist. If you can get through the things you don't like to do, you can successfully do the things that you do want to do. And when I found that out, I drove myself to become the person I am today because of how hard I worked at the things that I didn't want to do, and forced myself to do it even though I knew I didn't like it. But I knew that the outcome would be that I will become successful in the stuff that I do want to do.
Now, that is a very, very inspiring story. And Stuart Ball is an individual that I met when he first arrived here on Milliken's campus. And I really, really, really loved this little carrot top, as we all like to call him on campus, but also I just loved Stuart's character. And he is a very quiet individual, but yet he has a lot to say. And that story that he told about how his aunt bought him supplies, bought him something that he can actually be great at, which was art. And now today, Stuart is a brilliant artist who is now working on our team for Fridays at Phil, but also an individual who has inspired a lot of his teammates from his story. And I believe that Stuart is absolutely an individual that will excel just because he did not give up on himself, which is very important. And it's something that I think that we all need to hear, not giving up on yourself, because we're all not perfect and we are all going to fail at something in our life, but it's how we get around that, and it's also how we use that failure and we grow from it. And Stuart definitely did that. And so I hope you were definitely inspired by this story. But next, I want to jump into individual Autumn Watkins, who I met my freshman year here at Milliken University, and I wanted her to share her story on how she came out and how it was a very interesting process for her, because while she was going through this transition, she was still in her phase, I guess, of loving guys, while at the same time loving girls. And she was fighting this because she came from a very religious background, and she loves God, and she definitely is a Christian, but she was struggling with definitely with becoming who she was, but also at the same time loving God, and not finding I guess an issue between that.
In my high school, there was only one person that was out, and I was friends with him, and just by being friends with him, I was kind of ridiculed. And so, like, he was put through a lot of crap, so, I mean, obviously, I had denied to myself my sexual orientation, so, I didn't feel like
Take your time, it's okay.
Yeah, so like I didn't feel too upset about it because myself I didn't realize my orientation yet, but it was definitely hard to see what my friend was going through. Definitely lost some friendships there. My best friend still is friends with me, but she's one of those very religious types who's very against it, but she says that she doesn't agree with it, but she still loves me as a friend. But she definitely lets me know that she doesn't agree with it. I think the fact that I'm gay and I'm in a sorority is shocking to some people. They're like, they let you live with all those girls? Yeah. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, yeah. I don't know. But so yeah, it can be like stereotyped badly at times, but my sisters are amazing and love me. So once I did start coming out, I found it very difficult to tell some of my sisters, like especially my big, because like I presented myself, I had a boyfriend at the time, and they knew that I had a boyfriend, so it was hard to say, well, like, you had a boyfriend, what happened? Like, so I felt like that was very difficult.
Thanks to Autumn. That was, I think, one of the most interesting experiences or stories that I've ever heard. But the next person that I'm going to introduce you to is Susan Renton. And she is a very, very, very outgoing individual. But something I learned about Susan, and she doesn't really classify herself in any setting or any category. And when we were talking, I asked Susan what would she consider herself. Is she straight or is she bi? And she said neither. She said she is pansexual, which is a person who likes many things. They don't have to be attracted to just female. They don't have to be attracted to male. She likes who she likes in that given moment. And I said, well, go ahead, Susan. Go ahead with your bad self. So we're going to take a look at this interview that Susan and I had on the show. And she's going to explain a little bit about herself because she's a very interesting person. And there's a lot that you can learn just through what she has to say, but also through how she defines and expresses herself as an individual. So here we go, Susan Renton.
Yeah, it's similar to bisexuality, where bisexuality is bi, meaning male-female. Pan means many, because I don't believe in the gender binary. I don't believe that people are male-female. I believe that there are people who identify outside of that spectrum. I actually identify outside of the spectrum as well. I identify as a genderqueer. Because some days I will dress girly as I'll get out, and then other days, I will pull my hat down and wear my baggy clothes and, get my swag on. So I mean, it just kind of flows for me, and that's kind of how my sexual orientation is. It flows. I'm not really attracted to any specific person. It's just who they are as an individual. So a lot of people kind of get confused but don't really understand. But some people actually are like, oh, okay, well that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you shared that with me. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you didn't learn anything from that, I just don't know what to tell you, because when I found out about that phrase pansexual, I was a little bit surprised and shocked, but also that was a very educational moment for me. It was a very aha moment that you never know what an individual defines themselves as, and you never know how an individual is going to place themselves in a different category, or what an individual really likes. All we can do is respect them for who they are. And speaking in terms of respect, these next two individuals, Aaron Thomas and David Michael Jones, are two African American men, both coming from a similar background, but two different stories. David Michael Jones is a very, very self-expressed individual, and he has no problem dressing as if he were a female, because this is what he feels most comfortable in. He loves dressing in female clothing, but sometimes he likes to dress in male clothing. It just depends on the day for him. But David Michael has a unique story, and he definitely doesn't have a problem sharing it, because he wants people to know that no matter who you are, no matter female or male, you are still that person. You are just expressing yourself in a different manner, in a different way. And that doesn't take away from who you were born as. And Aaron, on the other hand, is an individual who is very quiet, very reserved, but also an individual who is very powerful in the sense that he definitely was dealing with so much internally and being in an environment that he wasn't so comfortable in. So I really am excited for this interview. I'm excited for you to see this interview because I want you to observe these two, how different they are, but yet how similar they are as individuals. And definitely pay attention to what David Michael Jones has to say about him being who he is and how he deals with it on a daily basis, but also how it has given him strength to carry on every day. So here we go, David Michael Jones and Aaron Thomas.
Okay, so, well, starting with my elementary and middle school, I went to a very small school and there were a few African Americans there. And then in high school, there were 140 kids there. And my freshman year, there were 5 African Americans. And it was an interesting transition because going to a private school, I wasn't necessarily able to connect to people who snowboarded or just did different things because I've never done any of that stuff before. And I mean, I'm able to connect with anybody because I just find different things, different interests. And I definitely had to let people know that it's not okay to ask me if you can call me the N-word. It's not okay if you can make racial jokes of any kind around me. I had to set the bar to let people know. And I mean, at the end of my 4 years, I was able to, I gained this sort of respect from people. They know that they can make jokes around me, but they have to be jokes that don't necessarily come at the harm or dismay of others in any way. It's ignorance, mostly, that drives these racial insensitivity that occurred during my 4 years at my private school. Nothing else.
I would like to say that I am a individual. And when I say individual, we're all individuals, but when I say individual, I mean, there aren't many people like myself. When I say myself, I mean someone who isn't defined by gender barriers. A lot of times I'm confused for male or female, and I mean, sometimes I answer to them, but at the same time, I don't like pronouns because they sort of put me in a box, and I just don't like them. There aren't many people like myself out there in the media. It's always black and white. It's either gay or straight, and I think we're all sexual creatures, and sexuality is such a fluid concept that I don't understand why we have to be fit into those boxes.
Good sexual creatures and sexual. What do you mean by we're all sexual creatures or sexual? Could you explain that?
When I say sexual creatures, I'm doing a lot of defining now. I mean that we're all human beings and we all have different traits and attributes that, I mean, it shouldn't really matter what's feminine or masculine because that's just a stigma put on people by mankind.
Exactly, and you are still a male, but you just happen to be comfortable to dress in the more of a, I guess, feminine approach, and also to dress in, I guess, sometimes the female clothing. Yes. And so, how was it hard for you through high school? Did you ever dress exactly the same way you are now in college as in high school?
Actually, in high school, it was a completely different story. Back at home, I actually come from a very Christian sort of family, so being androgynous is not an option at all. When I started growing out my hair, I always used to wear them in braids or I started dreads. And it just didn't seem like me because my brothers were doing it and my cousins were doing it. I thought it was cool, but I had to promote it. My sophomore year, I said, when I get to college, I'm going to change completely. I'm going to reinvent myself, and I'm going to be me for me. And so in high school,
Right, yes.
exactly. So in high school, I just had a different outlook on life. Like I was being who everyone else expected me to be, and it wasn't this. And I just, when I got to college, I decided that I would live my life the way I wanted to. So I straightened my hair and I started wearing more bright colors and tighter fitting clothes and more jewelry. And I mean, just came out of my shell. In high school, I was really shy. I do always sometimes get confused for a girl. So there will be sometimes when someone will look at me and be like, and then I'll be like, hi, I'm David Michael. And they'll be like, what? And at first it's kind of hard to accept, but I mean, if you're with an open-minded person, then they'll understand that, even if they don't. And what you were saying before about ignorance, I don't think ignorance is a problem. I mean, it is a problem, but it isn't the problem. The problem is not being willing to accept differences.
Exactly.
So if you know about them, it's okay because you know gay people are out there, you're just not accepting of them.
Wow, what an overwhelming amount of educational and inspirational and enlightening stories that we have had to share with you thus far. And one thing that we really strive for in producing our shows here at Fridays with Phil is that we want you to connect with every individual that we bring forth. And I tell you, these 5 individuals are just so special to me because I can relate to them on many levels. And it's not just on a level of being different, but it's on a level of learning how to really grow from the experiences in the past, and also not letting society dictate who you are as a person and who you were born to be. Because that's something that I have struggled with for a long time growing up. I, at a young age, was bullied and was called all kinds of names. And if it weren't for my parents teaching me the phrase, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt you, if it weren't for them telling me that, which at the time I really didn't know what it meant, but now I do, I don't know how I would deal with those individuals and what they had to say about me. And another thing that I learned is that people are always going to have something to say about you. People are always going to want to just pick at your nerves and always are going to try to find a way to tear you down. But you have to know who you are. You have to be comfortable with yourself, and you have to hold your head up high, put your shoulders back, and look those individuals straight in the eye and tell them that I am born this way. This is who I am, and there is nothing that is going to take away from that. And I hope that you have learned today on this episode of Fridays with Phil, Born This Way is something that you cannot change. But what you can change is the mindset of the individuals around you, and hopefully teaching them, educating them on celebrating differences. Yes, celebrating differences. And also being who you are meant to be and who you are called to be. But most importantly, respecting one another as individuals, respecting one another as who you were born to be.